Hi circuit kids, today we're going to build this mini lightsaber. As you can see, it's battery powered and there's a little circuit inside here, and that's our job today, is to solder that circuit. So let's get started. First of all, you'll need your Circuit Kids mini lightsaber kit. It's got everything we need in there. You'll also need your soldering iron and some solder, and you'll probably need some scissors and tape. Alright, let's have a look inside our kit here. Okay, so we've got our little sticker that goes around the outside on the hilt of the lightsaber. We've got this piece of clear tubing which will be the hilt, the handle of the lightsaber. We've got this plastic tubing here, it's red tubing, slightly smaller. That is for the main blade of the lightsaber. And we've got a little piece of black tubing here which we'll use as a bit of a joiner between those other two bits of tubing. We have a red 10mm LED. So this LED, or light emitting diode, has two prongs on it. One is longer than the other. One is positive and one is negative. We have to make sure we get that the right way. We have a little tiny battery holder which will solder to the circuit board and connect our battery to the circuit. In this little packet here we have the little battery itself. It is a 3-volt battery. So just be aware of small children when you're using these. Make sure that they're not left out or near little kids. So you can open up that when it's time to connect it all up. Here we have a little resistor. Now this resistor is enough resistance to slow down or reduce the current of the battery from 3 volts to 2.2 volts, which is what this LED needs. If you don't put the resistor in, there's too much power going through the circuit and it will burn out the LED. So that's why we need this little resistor. We have a switch, little push button switch. Now this is a momentary switch. A momentary switch just means it's only on while you're actually pressing it. As soon as you let it go, it's off. And then of course we have our PCB, or our printed circuit board. So you can see here on our Circuit Kids PCB we've got all the markings that will tell us where things go and little pads for us to solder things to. We also have a couple of what's called through holes where things go through and they get soldered on the back here. So we're going to go through all of that. Alright, while I'm organizing some of the parts here, I've turned on my gas soldering iron and I'm going to let that heat up while I'm getting organized. I'm using a soldering tip, a conical one, a pointy one, a bit like a witch's hat on the end here, so I find that's the most accurate one. Alright, so looking at our circuit board, we are going to begin by soldering on the resistor first. So the resistor, if I go a little closer here, will go where R1 is. So but in these two through holes. So all we want to do is get our resistor. Now there's no polarity or direction that this needs to go. So I find the best way is to just bend down both of the legs so that you get like this U shape, and then carefully place both of the ends down through those holes so that the resistor is kind of actually sitting on the rectangle where it's marked there. So once it's sitting there like that, I'll flip it over and you can see that the prongs are sticking out. So that's where we're going to do some soldering. Now some people like to cut off these prongs and solder. Some people like to solder and then cut off the prongs. It doesn't really matter. I might try one of each and see how that goes. So I'm just going to lay this down on my workbench. It's probably a good idea to have a wooden board or something where you're going to protect your desk or table or whatever you're working on. Alright, so if you haven't already checked out the soldering video, how to use the soldering iron and the solder wire, then I really suggest that you do that. But if you're up to speed with that, or you have some experience with soldering, then we can get going. So I've got myself some solder here, and the most important thing is that I'm making contact with my soldering iron on the little through hole circle pad, the metal, and the actual resistor as well. So I should be able to touch on there and then a little bit of solder, and you'll see the solder fill up the hole. And I'm going to do the same on this one. A little bit of heat, solder will melt on, and you're looking for that hole to be filled up. Okay, so on that one I actually did soldering first, and then I'll come back and trim. And just looking at that, I think my solder looks pretty good. Now when you see a little bit of solder coming through on the circuit side, that's probably just a smidgen too much solder. So you get kind of better at that as you go. Alright, so that is my resistor wired in. Next, I'm going to connect the switch. Now you can see that there are 4 little pads there for the switch. And when I look at the switch, there are 4 little prongs sticking out, 4 little feet sticking out of there. Now it might pay just to bend those over flat to make it sit better on your circuit board. So I'm just flattening those out a little bit, and I'm checking before I go soldering, I'm checking that things sit on there nicely. So I think what I might do is I might actually just snip a little bit off these prongs because they seem to be a little bit long, and while I'm at it I might cut these 2 prongs there. So I'm going to get my pliers. I'll snip off these resistor ends. There we go, that's a bit tidier. And on my switch I'm just going to, you'll see a little bend on the end of each. I'm just going to snip it off there, just a little bump, and I'm just going to cut those off. So all of these little bits that we cut off, we'll get rid of those. We don't want those in anybody's foot. So now I'm just sitting the switch on the pads and seeing how it sits, and I like that a lot better. Alright, what I like to do is just put a little bit of solder onto the pads. So I'm touching the soldering iron onto the little rectangular pad, putting a little bit of heat in there, a little bit of solder on each of these pads. Alright, so I've got 4 little balls of solder sitting on those pads. Now if I sit my switch on top of those pieces of solder, I just apply a little bit of pressure and add the heat from the soldering iron, and it will melt down and connect the solder to the circuit board. A little bit of heat. Doesn't take much to get it moving. Just take your time, get the position right. And you can go back, resolder anything that you're not quite happy with. Alright, that's looking pretty good. So my switch is now soldered on. A couple more things to go. In the same way, the battery holder has 2 little brass pads, and the circuit board has 2 little brass pads or metal pads, which will let it sit there quite nicely. And we could put some solder down here, but this time I'm actually going to just place it there and put the solder on top. But it's the same deal. apply some heat to each of the pads, and a little bit of solder will adhere to the pads. And if you get that right, you'll actually find the solder will keep the shape of the rectangular. Just make sure that you don't melt any of the plastic components like the brown surround on the battery pad. Alright, so now I have the battery connected as well, the battery holder. The last thing to put in is the LED. I've left that because it's a little bit chunkier and it might have gotten in our way as we were working. But this is where we need to make sure that we get the polarity right. The positive and negative has to be right, otherwise we've got to unsolder it and then resolder it back in. Now you'll be able to see on the circuit board that there's a little symbol for an LED, and we need to make sure that we get the positive and negative in the right holes. So what you'll notice is there are two prongs, one's longer than the other. The anode is the long one, which is positive. The cathode is the shorter one, and that's negative. On our circuit board, the diagram is showing an arrow moving across, and we want to get the power going from positive to negative. The other clue is that on the through holes, one of them is square and one of them is round. The square one is for the longer positive. So all I have to do is put the positive longer prong through the square hole and the other one negative through the other hole. One thing we need to make sure here is that we don't actually want to solder the LED all the way hard against the PCB, because we want to be able to bring it out a little bit and bend it. So if I fold this over, and that's the direction that it's actually going to face up into the tube of the lightsaber. So this is a through hole one. Put some solder on the terminals, a little bit of heat, tap on the solder wire, both terminals, and we definitely want to make sure that those two terminals don't have solder bridging across from one to the other. That will cause a short. Okay, let that cool for a second, checking that all the solders look good. Straighten up the bend a little bit, and I can now just trim off the cathode and the anode. Alright, I've got myself the circuit done. With the circuit complete, I can now put the battery in, take it out of the packet, put it in the battery holder, and see if the circuit works. Okay, so we're going to put this battery in, push it in, make sure it's in snug, and when I press my button, it should light up. Awesome. Okay, now we move on to constructing it all together to the final product. Okay, so we're going to start with attaching the lightsaber shaft itself to the LED, and it actually fits on there pretty good. So what I would do is just very gently bend everything so that it's sitting straight, and look both ways, turn it around and make sure it's sitting nice and straight. When you're happy with that, push it all the way on, and then get your little piece of sticky tape and just run that around just to lock it onto the bottom of the LED. So the bottom of the sticky tape is actually sticking to the bottom clear part of the LED, and the rest is on the red tubing. Okay, so that's secured that nicely. You can cut this to whatever length you want. The length that it comes in is a nice length, I think, so that's up to you. Alright, next is to insert the whole circuit into the handle. So this should fit directly inside, and you can see because it's clear it does actually fit. Now it doesn't need to go all the way down to the bottom, it can sit kind of anywhere you want, but wherever you're happy with it, just sit it in there. And the last piece is this little piece of cowling which goes, kind of holds the two together, and you'll see it goes between the red and the clear tubing. Now you might want to grab a little bit of super glue and just put a smidge between the black and the clear, but it's not really that necessary, but it's up to you. The last step is to put your lightsaber decal or sticker on and wrap it around there. So when you peel it off, you'll notice that most of the sticker is right to the edge, and there's a little white edge here. So I'm going to start my white edge on there, and I'm basically lining it up, trying to be straight, and just kind of rolling the sticker on. And if you get that pretty close, you should get something that looks like that. Now you've got yourself a lightsaber. So the only other thing that you need to do is, if you sneak a little look down through the end, if you turn your circuit so that it lines up with the button and the dot. So the button and this dot, if they line up, then you'll find it a little bit easier to remember where to press. So that's pretty much lined up mine right there. Now when I press there, I know I'm going to get my light. Let's see with the lights off. It actually does a little bit of a laser pointer too, so that could come in handy. Well done. Good job, circuit kids. You've made yourself a mini lightsaber.